Namaste and welcome everyone for this beautiful Mahanavratri featured event with Mr. Jinan. A little bit about Mr. Jinan. Mr. Jinan has spent more than 30 years researching on learning processes, cognition, aesthetic sense, children, traditional knowledge system, design and architecture education. He believes that introduction to text in early childhood years damage our cognitive abilities. He draws his learnings from researching, living, and working with indigenous communities. In his words, my inquiry has been rooted in experience. I stopped reading in 1990 or so, and that has rewired my cognitive process and stopped reasoning as a way for comprehension. My cognitive source shifted from books, words, to the world. Observation, attention, awareness, experience became my cognitive process, and self organizing became the process of comprehension. Automatically, reasoning stopped functioning within me. This means understanding began to happen. Nature, children, and the illiterate are my teachers, guides in this journey. Mr. Jinan continues to work in the field of learning and living and sensitize people through various workshops, courses, and talks. We'll be sharing his details shortly, post his talk. Welcome, Mr. Jinan, and the stage is yours. Can you also make Mr. Jinan co-host, please?
Yeah, okay. So thank you. Yeah, always difficult to begin, you know. Yeah. Well, one gets completely frustrated looking at the way the West continues to massacre this whole idea of knowledge with all their might, and there is hardly any support for any proper inquiry into what really is learning. So just in the morning, I was looking at research. It's a very important research by a Western thinker, and he has written a book called The Master and the Emissary. How the Western brain got divided, how the left and right brain got divided, And of course, he talks about several aspects of how it got divided. And then he's complaining that people are not able to understand, and also that our education should change and make people more teach them both sides of the coin, so I fundamentally realized that somewhere Ian has understood the problem of modern minds, which is the fragmentation of left brain and right brain, but his solutions are absolutely not right at all. I'm sorry to confuse you right in the beginning. Now let me, so I can tell you what I'm trying to share. You see, we are biological beings fundamentally. Like the way digestion happens to us, we don't make any effort for digestion to happen. We don't make any effort to understand mother tongue. It happens to us. In Bangalore slums, children imbibe about 4 to 5 languages by the time children reach about 4 to 5 years. Automatic process. Nobody makes any effort to teach. Nobody makes any effort to learn. But children are able to, communicate. They understand different languages. And for some strange reason, modern educated people are completely blind to this capability, which is given by life. We still depend, we think that our ego can do the work. And finally, with rampant destruction happening all around the world, we still are, depending on the same nonsensical Western mind to solve the problems. The problem is the Western mind, but the Western people are not responsible. They are victims of a certain situation. But unfortunately, now what I mean by West is that all the educated people are Western in their, in their thinking. Because whatever we learn is about the West, whatever they produce, you consume. There's nothing else that you are consuming, whether your understanding of children, whether your understanding of parenting, everything. And the more you are speaking English, the more damaging it is, because you have more access to those nonsense that is being written in the West, especially the people in the, who are not literate about English, who don't understand English, are not as damaged as the English speaking modern Indians, so of course the name of the talk today I've given Unparenting, and I've been doing this unparenting workshops precisely because, see, the parents are now talking about unschooling, unlearning, and what is that, homeschooling, etc. All these terminology are being used, all imported from the West only. But I realize that unless they unparent themselves, unless they get into a process of unparenting, a process of unschooling, how do they even engage with their child? Because the child doesn't need any kind of unschooling. So this is again a tragedy of the modern mind, who thinks that children need to be unschooled. So even words people don't understand. What would be a meaning of what do you mean by unschooling? Someone who has been schooled, you remove that aspect. Am I right? I think that is what I would think. But you begin to use the same term with children who are not at all schooled. Or do you want to say that you are continuously schooling them and you want to unschool them? So I think, the tragedy is that unless, and the trap of modern mind is that, see the very word modern is a trap. Because modern means there is something that is not modern, or when you call yourself educated, already that there is a trap inbuilt into that word, educated, which also means that there is somebody who is not educated. So in every way, without we wanting, we acquire a superiority complex. That is not something that we wanted, but that is part of the package. You go through education, get a degree and come out, then you are not only cognitively damaged, but even behaviorally damaged, because you think that you are superior, that itself, that's a fundamental damage, So, I actually began to do this when I was, doing my, right throughout my journey, I was not at all happy with schools. My parents were teachers. So, especially my father turned my home also into a school. So I had nowhere to go actually. And it was worse actually. School was better because, in front of an authoritarian father, you have nowhere to go, but at least in the classroom, out of 30, 40 students, you're one of them, so the dadagiri, the attention is not much. But luckily, I got into a hostel, which means far away from home. And I remember by 7th standard, I used to count the days when I reach, for holidays, I start counting days. When do I go to school? That was much, much better. Anyway, I'm just telling you the feeling I had right from childhood. And then, of course, like everybody, I also, I mugged up and, I started doing engineering. And luckily in 3rd year, I was expelled. And of course, in the first 3 years, I was drinking and smoking, hardly took part in that, whatever was happening, because that was a fantastic celebration of my freedom, away from father, away from everybody, living in a hostel. And but 3rd year, luckily, I was expelled. And that gave me a fantastic time to really wonder about what is happening in the name of education. Because as I looked around, I noticed that nobody is actually committed to learning. Everybody wanted good marks because they wanted to either become an IAS officer, IPS officer, IES, all kinds of, clerk somewhere. But engineering per se, there was hardly anybody interested. I felt this is a joke, yeah. I mean, and this is not only true with the students, same case with teachers. They were all good people. There's no complaint about their goodness, They were all good people, but no commitment to learning. And then other tragedy I found was that I only heard Boyle's law, Charles' law, and various Johns and people like that, but never heard any Indian. I'm not at all patriotic. Huh? That's not the reason why I'm raising this. I feel that every culture has to produce knowledge. In fact, the very definition of a culture is creation of knowledge. It is the contextual knowledge created by the people that creates culture. And it also defines your aesthetic sense. It also defines your ethical parameters. And the tragedy is that for everything, the non-Western countries are depending on the so damaged and so violent Western systems, And so anyway, when I was expelled, I went to a school and started spending some time there. And later, of course, I had decided never to do anything 9 to 5 and never to work. No 9 to 5 job, and don't do anything that you don't like to do. And, somehow I passed. Engineering also I took, of course, with good marks, of course, but that is not very difficult at all. And then, of course, I got into NID. And that actually I joined NID only hoping that another next 3 years, I don't have to look for a job. Stipend was available. So next 3 years, don't worry about, student life is free. So I thought, let me extend my student life, my master's, with stipend from the government and whiling away time. Meanwhile, look at, what are the possibilities of what to do with life. But NID was a fantastic experience because NID gave me an insight into completely another way of learning. At NID, no one was taking attendance. Nobody was teaching, but everybody was involved in learning. Every student was involved in learning, and there was no exams, there was no test. So it had a completely different environment, which I call a learning environment. Until then, what I had encountered was what I call as the teaching environment, where there are ready-made books, somebody is teaching, somebody is consuming that thing, so hierarchy is created. So it's a completely different kind of a scenario, whereas in a learning environment, nobody is teaching. And nobody has ready-made knowledge. Knowledge is something that you create as you experience. So NID had a fantastic, environment, and I began to really deeply study what is it that makes an environment, that learning, that kind of an environment. But there was one catch at NID. That was all the freedom was given within the framework of the West. So you're free to become a Western, designer. With aesthetic sense based on West, and the same market rules that they have been imposing on other countries. Because I think if India had a choice, I don't think we would ever sell water. Because all these kind of things that was completely considered unethical has been imposed on this country because we never stood against this nonsense. So even our ethical parameter is completely smashed. And so NID, I also began to look at the aspects of even within a framework of freedom, how do you still get colonized? So luckily, NID also, because of my interest in craftsmen, handicrafts people, I got exposed to the rural Indians. And as soon as I finished NID, I began to work with the rural tribal people, artisans, craftspeople. And well, initially, of course, I, like an all educated people, I thought I have to go and, save them. But within few months, I realized it is me who need to be saved, and they are perfectly fine. And because I realized that they are the true Indians. If there is any true Indian, those are the illiterate people of this country. Educated actually means, one of my friends was telling, the best definition is that, so we have this NRI, non-resident Indians. So we have resident non-Indians. Those are the educated, who are educated out of their Indianness. So when I began to live with rural tribal people, illiterate people, I began to see something fantastic happening there. I found that there was no teaching at all, and artisans were learning, they were creating beautiful things. So there's no teaching of aesthetics, yet they're able to create something beautiful. And I looked at children and I found that children are learning on their own. There was no teaching at all. By the time they reach about 8, 9, 10 years, they become skilled with whatever craft their parents are. So I was actually living with the potters community. So by 9, 10 years, the children are good in pottery, and by 12, 13, they learn how to do the firing. Everything is learned, with no teaching, just experiencing what is happening. So one thing that became very clear to me is that the literates are learning the word and illiterates are learning the world. And what happens in that process is that our cognitive system, what I mean by cognitive system is the cognitive tool, the cognitive process, the behavior, abilities, and even the way the comprehension takes place. This is what I call as the cognitive system, which means it contains all the aspects of what to learn and how to learn. For literates, it is purely linguistic. Their cognitive source is language, and they engage with the mind. Understanding takes place within the realm of language itself. So cognitive source is language, and the cognitive system is based on language itself. Whereas when you are learning the real world, your cognitive tools are your senses, not language, not mind. It is your senses that gives you input, and the processing is done within you, exactly the way how you imbibed your mother tongue. You did not make any conscious reasoning. You did not ask what is the meaning of this word. You did not have any idea of how to use sentence because you had no idea of grammar. In spite of not knowing grammar, you were able to speak, which means that this whole organization of the structuring of language happened within you. And as you can see, the input were sporadic. It was not systematic, input. You heard some word one day, another word another day, different things. So in a completely disorganized manner, all the inputs were taking place. Similar thing is happening in the learning the world also. Every day, senses are giving various kinds of inputs. They are not organized at all. But our system has the capacity to organize data, organize information. And that organization depends on, basically, that is actually to make you live. All the senses are continuously giving input. But of course, our system selects what is to be stored and what is not to be stored, or what is important and what is not important. And then it creates an understanding within you, and it is given to you as insights. Like, the way that we are able to speak spontaneously. When did this organization take place? It just happened spontaneous, yet very, very well organized. How is it happening? Exactly in the same way, the knowledge also gets organized within us. You see, we are not able to understand this because we have hardly done any work in our life. We have not learned anything in our life in a natural manner. So we find it very strange when this is so easy, But step out and go to any village and then observe how children learn. Then you will realize that, or maybe if you remember your childhood, I don't know how you learned cycling or cooking or something like that, or swimming, or, most of us learned completely on your own without any kind of support, Of course, in the urban areas, support has begun because this natural distrust has begun to happen within us, unlike the rural communities. So what I did was that when I understood that this is what is happening in the rural tribal areas, I began to observe children. And all my understanding of children basically comes from observation of how what children do spontaneously and naturally. And I began to document. I began to use videos and images to make a collection of what I observed. Primarily because I realized that the only way to communicate to a literate is through images, because otherwise they will make their own story in their head. Because you see, what happens when you engage with language is that language only makes you to imagine certain things. Suppose when I say glass, I'm sure that how many people there are about 28 people in the participants. 28 of them will think different glasses. But if I actually show you something, if I show you something, then your imagination is stopped. You are actually now observing this only. There's absolutely no, so when you're using your senses, there is a concreteness about what you're learning. Whereas when you're using language, it's completely imaginary. You're creating an image, and quite often even that doesn't happen, because whenever we do workshops, we ask people to write certain terms, and then later we find that they only remember the spelling, but they are more worried about how to spell, so that image itself doesn't come. So this is the problem with language. So as I was telling, as I began to document these children's activities, I found that there is a fantastic system given by nature to understand the world. Now I will talk about something else, which was an experiment that we did in Pune. We ran a school in the outskirts of Pune. We called it Reimagining Schools. So by then it was very clear to me that children are learning, and we need to actually respect that their cognitive autonomy, and just just step out and start documenting what they were doing. So these 3 years, the teachers were involved in documenting what children were doing spontaneously. And so based on all these thousands of videos and images, it became extremely clear that there is a life-given system to understand the real world. Not only the content, but it also develops the qualities, it also develops your behavior. Everything is dictated by life itself. Now, this is what is completely killed when you send children to school, or when you begin to teach. Doesn't have to, now these days you don't have to send children to school, because the parents are already teachers only. So the tragedy begins in an educated home, whether you're a teacher or not. Formally you don't have to be a teacher. You're already a teacher in your behavior, because the authority is already creeped in. You're treating your child as someone who is incapable. So you're already, without your wishing, you're already a teacher in that sense. So the system is very clear. So maybe I can quickly show you something. Let me just with an example, let me tell you. Now, okay, I'm sure, I don't know whether how many of you have, when you got the book first time in notebook, have you kept the book like this in your childhood? Yeah, and said something about it. You must have called it either a house or a tent or something. I'm sure you've done this. No? So that is number one. Second is that, have you put bedsheet over a table and played house? Bedsheet over a table and made house. Okay. The third thing is that, have you used pillows, chairs, and whatever is available and constructed a house? You must have done that. And have you seen how children, when they sit on a sofa, start bouncing? That also you've seen. Okay. Now, see, the world is about forms, function, process, materials, and structure. This is what the world is. I hope there is no confusion about it. Form meaning what it looks like. Form meaning what it looks like. So you recreated what something looked like. Recreating form. Recreating function is putting bedsheet over a table. You created a space. That contained space is the home. So you created the function. The third is that you used various materials and constructed a house. So you went through the process of construction. The third is that while you are using it, you are exploring the materiality of various things. You tried putting the bedsheet over as a roof, it fell off, and then you tried to tie. So there are many experiments that we did to respond to the materiality, the property of a particular material. So why you are bouncing on a sofa is also precisely that, because it's that particular materiality that is enabling you to do that. You don't do it on a chair, which is hard. You only do it on a sofa. Or you might find that if the floor is smooth, children will come and slide. So everywhere you find that there is a very, very clear system in responding to the real world. And that system is enabled by light. And how the West has completely misunderstood all this, because they have fragmented children's holistic activity into play, learning, entertainment, art. Actually, there is only one activity that children are doing. They are cognitive activities, and they do it playfully. So the playfulness is what we are confusing as play. And every activity, every experience, they recreate experiences to understand those experiences. So they are not playing for the sake of playing. That's a silly modern idea, actually. Playfulness is a quality, and reenacting things, it's like reflection. They reenact experiences to understand experiences. So this system is very, very clear. And maybe I can quickly show you a few videos, before the okay, let me just show you one important thing about knowledge creation. So in a natural condition, see, the natural condition of all living beings is unknown. We are not dealing with ready-made knowledge at all. We are always in the realm of unknown. We are engaging with the real world, and there is no teaching at all. So the development of natural processes is that the real learning process gets awakened. Knowledge creation happens. You see, we must understand that, again, you compare language in this case, no? See, without implicitly you knew grammar, otherwise you wouldn't be able to speak. So there is an implicit understanding of grammar. Similarly, there is an implicit understanding of physics. That's why the child is responding like this. He understands, he's measuring certain things. He's gauging certain things. So natural qualities get developed: intelligence, creativity, being open. Now, see, the tragedy is that modernity has completely appropriated all these words and creativity, because they're using same words. But I don't know what they mean by all this, because now creativity is considered something like what an artist does. Actually, creativity is something that is inborn with every being. Even a dog is creative. Every being is creative. See, creativity basically means you are responding to the unknown. That's what it means. And that is what the child continuously does. I'm sure none of you are teaching children how to crawl and climb on a chair and all that. No? So every step for a living being is in the realm of unknown and they are responding spontaneously. So all the senses are involved in this observation. You can check, see how this child is continuously watching in order to, just climb this thing, no? So observation is one very, very fundamental quality that has no place in our school system, Comparison. Now, this is the most important video that I have. So please look at the child sitting in the front and see how he is comparing and finding similarity and differences. Now he will bless you. Please take the blessing. Bless all these people, new people. Thank you. All these are educated people. Please pardon them. Yeah. So see, finding similarity and finding difference is the crux of learning. That is what our senses are doing all the time. Comparing, see, you just remember or think of eating mango for the first time. Second time you ate mango, you recollected. But that mango was not exactly the same. Maybe the smell differed, the stage differed, So the senses are continuously making these comparisons between, and then creating certain kind of categories in that, I'm sure you don't put the Karela in the same category as mango, or bindi in the same category. So naturally, our senses are categorizing the information in a certain way. All the senses. So let me quickly, curiosity. This is one word that educated and the school continuously uses. Curiosity again is life given. Every being, every living being is curious. And I don't think we can beat this much curiosity in us. See, that much we don't do. So let me, this is another very, very important thing. You see, this is the principle of how children create toys. Now, what I want to say is that ready-made toy is more dangerous than schools, because ready-made toys completely kills creativity and real content of knowledge. The child took a bite on a coconut piece. This coconut piece. He took a bite. He saw that shape and immediately he recollected the Nandi bull. So look at the comparison. Then he remembered the moon, half moon. So this similarity, exploration of similarity, is what is actually why children create toys at all. But all these processes are completely killed when we are interfering with children's lives. So the principle behind creation of toys, play, as I told you, is reenactment of experience. The same object is used in different things. It's a child, then it is a bus, it is for sitting, So this flexibility, this jugaad quality in all of the children is what is getting killed when you give each product for each, So I'm just doing my marketing right away. This is my number, and if you're interested, do contact me. And of course, we will, I'm sure Sneha will send you my number, and because we continuously do this, getting people. Actually, our idea is to shame modern educated people so that they start at least looking at their children. No, we need to really make them realize how stupid they are actually. How uneducated they have become, how illiterate actually they have become, so that they at least begin to respect children and respect life. That's what it actually means. Respect life. So I won't go too much into these theories. Let me just show you the form thing now. Let me just show you the form. Yeah, these are very, very interesting. I've been actually documenting all kinds of things that children use as, this is so interesting. Let me just share this with you. Oh, sorry. This is a child as with two combs. He has created his aeroplane. That form thing, I'm sorry, I'm just running to show you the form and this is the form. So form is what something looks like. So when there are more books, they build the multi-story buildings. This is from the school that we ran. And you can see when children had freedom, they would do all kinds of things throughout the day. They don't sense boredom at all. Boredom again is a modernity's gift. Huh? Tradition doesn't have boredom at all. And of course, modernity is celebrating boredom because they are under the assumption that when you're bored, you become creative. It's absolutely a rotten idea, actually. Boredom itself is a mental damage. You go to any rural travel area, there is no sense of boredom at all. Or you meet any child, before you create boredom in them, they don't get bored at all. So boredom is a modern disease. So this was a fantastic comparison that, see, sometimes instead of form, they would use the similarity in color. So this flower was used for bangan and this flower was used for chili. Function is this, I told you how we make a house and play teacher, the house games. And this, of course, is what, of course, I'm sure you must have done many, many marriages and, doctor came and all kinds of things, khana banaya, So, and process is process of making, as I told you, structure is, of course, the structural stability that it gets as you build, So in that process, your skill gets improved, your understanding of material stability, all that is, imbibed in that process. Property of materials, of course, you bounce on sofa. This was in the railway station, you have this new chair. And so difficult for adults to sit because the moment you sit, you start sliding. And children actually make use of that, They sit on it and start sliding. Yeah. There you are. So this is absolutely spontaneous. And of course, the modern people keep talking about Montessori. Now, Montessori has understood children, but her application was terrible. If you truly understand children, you wouldn't develop a method for teaching children. And you wouldn't fragment senses into a compartmentalized thing because senses don't function like that as per your wish. You first look, then you touch. It doesn't happen like that. All your senses are functioning simultaneously, depending upon what you're engaging with. And when you create a method for children, you've already lost it. So here, example of function, process, everything put together. Just with whatever is available, he created the house. So of course, these are rules and things like that I have been able to understand by exploring. So let me now, just one thing I want to show you. Maybe I don't know. Oh, it's not there. Anyway, I think now I'll open it up for only 15 minutes. Let's open it up for if you want to share something. By the way, I'm doing a 5-day course from the 1st of November, 5 days evening. So anyone who really wants to understand how actually learning takes place, please do join that.
Anyone, if you have questions, you may please type in the chat box or raise
Or
your
they can
hand.
ask.
Yeah, you can just raise your hand and we'll just open up the mic. Meanwhile, I am really, you really got me back connected to that child, the childhood time when actually this was, at least during our times, the gadgets were not there and,
Yeah.
we didn't, so many things were restricted. So all we did was play. But in
Yeah.
today's time, this has really, really been taken away from children, like you mentioned. So that really struck something in me to be more conscious about this because I have a 6-year-old and I often see her
Oh,
playing with things and doing things and all of that. But
yeah,
yes, there is a little bit of the gadget as well. So as much as we reduce it, but that also is something that happens. But I wanted to ask you
yeah,
that as parents, what are some practical things that we can do now, because our lives have kind of mixed with the educational system, though there
yeah.
are so many options right now of alternative education, and at least not very streamlined schooling systems. There are options, but what are the practical ways that we can start implementing right away bec- and work?
No, no. First of all alternative education options are equally bad. It's even more damaging because it's like the difference between a zoo and a reserve. In the zoo, at least you know you're jailed. In the reserve, you don't know that you're jailed. So alternative education thinks that they have solved the problem, but they've hardly solved any problem, because the fundamental issue that needs to be addressed is knowledge creation. And not one alternative school talks about knowledge creation. It's all about knowledge transfer. It's all about hierarchy. A teacher who knows, a student who doesn't know. And of course, they invent many new terminologies like guides. That's new terminologies, but none of the terminologies actually work. Because actually, if you know what is learning, you will never do the crime of teaching. It's a crime, actually. Because it's like digestion. Can you digest food for others? It's a totally internal process. Comprehension is a very internal process. Like, how did you learn your mother tongue? Can somebody teach you how to do that so easily? Then if that is there, which means that there is a system already given by life for understanding the world. Cognitive process and digestive process are exactly similar. And see, all the alternatives, see, I can tell you that alternatives are equally bad. In fact, it is worse. That's what I feel, because alternative people think that they have discovered things, which is even more dangerous. You look at the environmental crisis, the solutions given by the alternatives are also going to be the very same only, hardly any difference. The problem is actually the alienation of human being is the problem, which means we have lost our connection with life, connection with our senses, our body. So it's a much more deeper crisis that we individually has to undertake, and forget about our children, because they may be able to teach us how to, because they are still far more alive than we are. They are not yet damaged. So the thing is that how do we regain our body, our true connection with body? Again, you see, there is a trap by the modern mind. Now they are talking about embodiment, which is absolute nonsense. Again, it is a mind playing a trick, talking about body as if the mind has suddenly discovered the body. So the mind has to completely be humble, learn to be humble, obey the body, that's it. It's the body that is far more intelligent than the mind. But the mind has completely taken over. And you see, unnecessarily, issues about gender. Let me tell you the issue of gender. Actually, the fundamental issue of gender is a fragmentation of our being, which is actually Ardhanarishwara. So when we are fragmented, naturally in the modernity, we have only masculine quality. So even feminism is nothing but a masculine response. So true feminism, feminine quality is something that all of us have to regain. So it's not a female problem, it's a male problem also, because we have only masculine quality in modernity. That's primarily because we are continuously using the mind only, and we are using language. So basically, this is a much deeper crisis than solving a small problem of finding a good school and all that. No, this is a real, crisis of human being to be addressed at a much, much deeper level. And of course, it may take some years. Not that not in our lifetime. Maybe another 3, 4, 500. I don't know how many hundreds of years. But there is a need for a very deep yearning for in a much deeper way, not an egoistic kind of a cry, something far more, for life, yeah.
Wow, that's wonderful, Mr. Jinan, and thank you for bringing that up. In fact, we haven't spoken about this, but the work that we're doing here also, this is the Mahanavratri festival and these 9 nights of the goddess celebration, is again, connecting with the same feminine energy. We again,
Yeah,
through the way we're connecting is again, getting our emotionals, being aware of our emotions, being aware of what comes up, healing the things that we haven't before, and coming into the center. And again, basically connecting with that feminine aspect, exactly like what you said, that the world has become so masculine that we all, even as women, portray our masculinity outside to become equal in the world. So
yeah.
I was just amazed at how this you beautifully, it was sync in the, we're in the same direction. Let me move to the next question.
Actually, I just
Yeah.
want to say that art is even a larger trap. Art, art is a trap. There is no art. There is sense of beauty, which is very different from art. See, everything has been now turned into a mental idea by modernity. So art is another mind-created idea. So all mind-created ideas are problematic, actually. So we need to really understand what is the sense of beauty that body needs, not to satisfy the mind's, because people keep saying, what is it called? Beauty lies in the eye of the beholder, or some strange thing that people talk about now. Yeah, it's actually much deeper than that. It's actually body's need. It's not a psychological need at all. It's far. So I think all these areas needs re, looking into. Yeah, yeah. So please, Sneha, you were.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like all these words, the meanings have been associated in a very different way. So it's
Yeah,
time to relearn the meaning of that particular word itself, what it truly means.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wonderful. So there's one question here.
Yeah,
So what?
Montessori,
Yeah,
Yeah,
Montessori.
I
Yes,
already told that in the group.
true.
Anyway, I will repeat it. See, Montessori's understanding of children are fantastic. But the moment that understanding is turned into a method, then I begin to wonder, did she actually understand children? Because if you actually understand children, then you will never talk about a system for children. Because it's already a very live, organic system that children has. So systematization of these kind of things is going to really kill the whole process, And also, you can't put children in the jail and allow, make them learn things. They have to be in the real world, open world. You see, I think what is required is we need a completely fresh research on how actually knowledge gets created. This is and autonomously. See, what I mean by knowledge creation is simply this, that I'm sure all of you, most of you must be remembering your how you hated grammar when it was first introduced in the lower classes. Terrible. And I'm sure all of us have held on to that hate for a very long time. Of course, we have also played a fantastic game, because grammar would fetch us more mark than writing that essay. So naturally we will pick up, but that is not because we liked it, but because that gave us an easy way to get good marks. But we never liked grammar. But imagine a situation where that once you learn how to speak very well, enable the child to pay attention to how you are speaking, the child will be able to decode the structure of grammar on their own, because their whole process is to understand similarity and difference. If children begin to pay attention to how language is being used, they will be able to see a certain kind of pattern emerging, from which they will be able to understand what is grammar. And I can tell you, if you do this, I can tell you, you will find many, many people absolutely in love with grammar, love with language. So I think that knowledge is actually something that if you truly get involved, you will get completely committed to understanding the world, because it's so beautiful. That whole process is so fantastic. But the tragedy is that hardly you meet any educated who's truly committed to learning. That's precisely because we have not understood, we have not decoded the process by which we are able to, through what I call is the act of metacognition, meaning meta-awareness, awareness of what you already know. Grammar is something that we already knew because we are able to speak. So in an inherent way, in an implicit manner, we knew grammar. So what is the process by which what is inherently known, implicitly known, is made explicit? And I call this metacognition, meta-awareness. And when you begin to pay attention to how you're speaking, how others are speaking, you're able to then pay far more. So you are attending at 2-3 different levels. You're listening to what is happening, they are talking. At one level, you're listening. Secondly, you are also paying attention to how that language is being used. And another possibility is that you also pay attention to why that particular way language is spoken. So you have layers of possibility of paying attention. And with that, you're able to really decode the whole, and exactly the same thing is possible with, every other subject. I'll tell you an example. My brother's son did not go to school for 12 years, and he was in the farm doing all kinds of things. So he wanted friends. So he went to a government school nearby where teachers don't go. So he had fantastic time in the next 3 years, 8, 9, 10. He passed the exam. And we found that he got very good marks in physics, mathematics, and chemistry. And no other subject, these subjects. Because he was really able to understand physics. Because he had already lived those principles. So when the teacher was telling this, he was already knowing things, and he was only placing names. He was giving names to principles that he already knew. He lived it. Exactly like the way you understood grammar, the rules of physics and rules of mathematics are already embedded in us because we are experiencing it by doing things. So in 12 years, that he has really imbibed the. See, what is science anyway? That is the grammar of life. No, those are the principles that are embedded in everything that we do. When you are lifting water, there's already fulcrum force lever that is being used. Na? Every activity that we are doing is contained, both physics, mathematics, and chemistry is already happening within us. So we are actually looking at these things as if, that we don't experience that at all. Na? So what I think is that, instead of wasting time on Montessori and all that kind of nonsense, let's begin to focus on how do we truly get into a deeper research on, first of all, let us figure out how do we understand things, not from reading, but from what we already know. How do we explicate? Sorry, I'm just using some word. I hope you understand that. What we already know, what is implicit, how do you, I don't know what word, explicate through a process by which you understand the laws of physics or whatever that you're interested in. No? So mathematics, for example, what is number? See, every time you cook, you're using numbers. No? You're calculating all the time. No? Through your smell is calculating how much quantity this is there. Your hand is, you're not measuring each time, like how many grams salt and all that. No? So your body is already knowing many things. So what is important is that how do we become aware of everything that we are doing and then decoding that? No? So there is a very urgent need to engage in a much deeper research and not waste people's lives and time for this nonsense called modern education. Absolute nonsense. All the psychological studies are terrible, actually. You first damage the head and then you say there is a problem because you only use your mind for learning the world. Your body is completely absent. And then you say there is some psychological problem. See, in a rural tribal area, especially in a tribal belt, you will not hear people who are, mental illness, madness, rape, or that kind of violence that is associated with the modern people. Why is it so? Because inherently we are good. Of course, the West keeps telling that we are inherently cruel. That's not true at all. All living beings are inherently good. That is the principle why its life is able to sustain itself. If there is cruelty, then no life can exist at all. Yeah, Neha, your hand is up. If you're asking any Montessori nonsense, don't ask. Yeah.
Sir, but I have to ask. I'm so sorry because I have been so invested in Montessori and I'm studying and
Yeah, but I told you it's nonsense now. It's absolute
right.
nonsense.
I agree.
Montessori, I tell you, Montessori method is absolute nonsense, and that is what people are trying to promote.
But I find from whatever you have said this whole time, I found that it was completely aligned, like both the systems, all
No,
your observations.
no, my
and
observations are right, but Montessori method is 100% wrong. You're trying
is
to
your
escape now. You're trying to escape now because you don't want to now question what you already know. That is the reason. Children do not
no.
need to be placed in one place and given activity for 1 month census, and they don't need your materials at all.
Okay.
What they need is real life materials, not specially made for them. What is in your kitchen, what you use. Nothing special should be provided for children, because that is not the way that life has intended life to be. The special thing for children is a modern problem.
Okay, so the special things also, sir, they are just some materials to introduce some concepts, like you were saying, to make it experiential.
Neha, I
rather
think you're
than-
wasting time. Neha, please. You're
Yeah.
just wasting your time. You're not able to understand anything that I have said from what you're telling. What you should do is if Sneha is going to upload this, listen to it 100 times. You introducing concept to children is absolutely nonsensical. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Because concept is not something that you can introduce in any way, because you are not understood what is concept. That's the reason. Like digestion, what is abstraction? Have you heard this word abstraction? What is abstraction? So we use these terms absolutely with no understanding. What is a concept? How does concept arrive in us? What is abstraction? What is concrete? So without knowing all these things, you are using these terminologies. This is what I'm telling. So either you spend, more time on with what we are doing, So there are several videos about our work in the net. If you're serious about it, otherwise you continue with your Montessori. But don't, I don't want to argue with that. I can tell you it's absolute nonsense. That's all I have to say. Because if you truly understand, how children learn, or what is learning, not how children learn, what is learning, you will not talk about introducing concept to a child. It's like giving a digested food to a child. There's no difference, because concept is something that happens because of a certain process that you go through. So this is the problem. Modern educated people don't understand any of these things. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about the high quality PhD scholars. I'm talking about them also. But they are all anyway, distributing what West produces, nothing more than that. No? That's what even West is doing. So you see, it's very important to step out of the paradigm of the West, because the paradigm of the West, let me tell you now sum it up in this manner. The whole modern education is based on how to teach. It's not based on how learning takes place. How to teach, that too, not the real, but the description. So naturally, the language rewires your brain, and the act of teaching damages your true learning process. So it destroys the content, it destroys the process. So you see, I think today we won't have too much time to discuss about this, but anytime you're free to come back to any of our sessions and have, because we are not merchants. We're not trying to sell anything. Of course, we need money to live. That's a different matter. But we have the highest quality material we have, but still we are not in the sales business at all. We want more and more people to understand how we are being fooled by the whole modern educational paradigm. just producing cognitive labor. That's all what it does. And of course, you're stamped intelligent and good and all that, but because that's a ego boost, na? Yeah, Parul. Yes,
I
Parul.
have a question. Can I ask?
Yes.
Oh, Aditya,
Hello.
who
Hello.
is it?
Hello, Jinanji. Parul here. I
One
think
minute, Parul. Parul, 1 minute. Somebody else was asking. Who was that?
Myself, Manish. I
Manish
have
just asked.
Sir, actually, I understand this one that you said this even Montessori is based on all other types of teaching is based. So I want to know that when the children become older, actually, let's say 12 years of the age or teens actually, or into
Yeah.
the elder further, right? So there is no further environment then if we don't follow any of this set teaching methods and all this one schools and all this one, then what? How can we impart knowledge to them, or how can we train them for the higher standards?
No. Let me ask you, do you have higher standards? Let's look at that. Do you have higher standards? Have you met anybody with truly higher standard to do this business? See, we have third-rate teachers, and we are still telling that they will teach your children. They are far more intelligent. Please understand this. I'm telling we need to devise a completely new way. That's what I'm trying to tell you. That don't waste time on this nonsense called modern education, because it leads you nowhere. Actually, what it is doing is that you are becoming anti-life. It is the educated who have turned against life. All the environmental destruction is done by the educated only. So the more educated you produce, the more anti-life people you produce. That's what it means actually. So this whole thing has to be reimagined completely new. So don't keep telling that we need to teach them something. What do you need to teach? You see, I can tell you one thing. I have been actually trying to engage with Ayurvedic doctors in this country. I have met some fantastic people. Fantastic, actually. Mind-blowing kind of understanding. But 99% of the Ayurvedic doctors are absolute useless these days, because they follow the allopathic method of Ayurveda. So unless you have a proper, if you don't, first of all, you need to understand what was the process that was done earlier to produce such excellent Ayurvedic Vaidyas in this country, or in any other field. Take any other field. Whether you look at the traditional architecture or look at any knowledge field you take. What was the procedure that was being used? And this country also produced the Vedas, no? How did it happen? So many, I mean, in almost every field. What was the process that was adopted to produce such committed and excellent people? They are ethically right. They are not against life. They are not against nature. So there are certain fundamental principles of knowledge creation also. That knowledge should be produced in such a knowledge that is not against life. So there are, see, I think if you really want that something should happen, because the way now the life is going, we are just going to destroy ourselves. There's no escape in this.
So if I understand correctly, sir, so you mean to say this one, that all these methods and systems are waste because the teachers are waste, right? And in ancient times,
the knowledge also, even the knowledge, modern knowledge itself has a problem.
Okay, and
modern knowledge is selfish. Modern knowledge is for utilizing. It is for destroying. So the very fact that you are inquiring into something is to destroy it, is to do something with that. It is not with the respect that you are engaging with knowledge at all. So that itself is a problem. So it is not only the ethical aspect of
questioning. You mean to say accept it without questioning?
Pardon?
You mean to say accept the things without questioning?
What do you mean by that? What question are you putting anyway? You tell me, what question have you put till now?
No, you just
No, I am not telling that. I am not telling that. You are the one who is mentioning this.
No, 1 second, sir. I mean, you said no that this today's knowledge is about inquiring, right? So I mean to say this one, that if we don't inquire, then I don't understand this
I didn't
point.
say it is about inquiring. No, 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 no. Don't make up any story. I did not say today's knowledge is about inquiring. There is absolutely no inquiry at all in today's knowledge. I'm telling today's knowledge is anti-life. There is no inquiry at all. What did you inquire at all in your school? They told you certain things and you believed it. And if you don't believe it, they will beat you up. Equation is very clear. I had this, interesting incident. Once this child, I think second standard or something like that, or first standard maybe, I don't remember which year. He came back and told me that today teachers told me one very interesting thing. Teacher told me that earlier people used to think the earth was round. Now they know it is flat. I was so happy listening to that child, because at least one child is observing and not believing the teacher that earth is round. But what do? You beat him up and tell, no, 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 earth is round. You have to believe. So where is inquiry you're talking about here? There's nothing but producing clones who believe in what is called, this is just another form of religion only. You call it science, that's the only name. The name has changed, education, science and all that. But you're just believers. What is the difference between believing in God or whatever religion and your modern science, modern knowledge? Same punishment systems and same Pope, no? The VC, Vice Chancellor, one Pope, you see, head priest. I'm enjoying, huh? Thank you very much. I'm happy to blast this nonsense. Okay.
Mr. Jinan, you're giving us very, it's like, these perspectives we have been built in such a long way, in such a conditioned way.
Yeah,
Like the modern world has really taken that control that we don't know that there is a possibility of another way. So
absolutely.
and because of the way you're bringing it across, there is a thought, there's a seed that this is true, because this is something we have also experienced as children,
Yeah,
to learn through really through the atmosphere, through where you are, than through. And in fact, I think most of us must have asked these questions: why did I learn this subject? I'm not using it anymore right now in my life. So that has definitely been. But yes, as young parents, we also get trapped in the whole situation that now what to do. How do we
No.
educate our
See,
children?
Sneha, one thing must be very clearly understood. We must differentiate between what we can do and what we should know. Today, what is happening is that we are limiting what we should know with what we should do. ये दोनों को separate करना है.
Absolutely.
What we should know should be the right. Whether we are able to do or not, that's a different matter at all. That's completely something we should not bother. Once we know what is the right thing, then what we can do become much more easier. For example, you see, I have an adopted child. But of course, she is doing, masters in philosophy in Pondicherry University, But of course, her dreams are different. I don't interfere with her at all. But only one thing I tell her. She knows my what I tell and all that. Only one thing I tell her: if you can find a work that you love, then your life is work. It will be fantastic. Otherwise, you're going to drag your life. Now, she doesn't like philosophy, but that's the easiest thing. That's why she chose it. So you have to take some degree somewhere, no? And I, of course, copied and passed. I hardly did any kind of, study and all that. So I did not damage my brain so much. If you mug up and, if you learn all this nonsense and pass, your brain gets damaged far more. I find the copying and passing is much more, or you buy it, yeah. I mean, it only today, yesterday night, somebody was telling me 25 lakhs, I think in Rajasthan or somewhere, 25 lakhs for a PhD. If you have money, please buy it. Don't waste your brain, don't damage your brain on that. They will do all the nonsense. They will write paper for you. They will do everything for you. I would prefer that than, wasting your time on this absolute nonsense called education. And one thing I want to tell you, that you are able to, you see, I'm not telling anything that are abstract. That is so fundamental, so easy to understand. When I say literates learn the word, illiterates learn the world, it absolutely makes sense. You don't even have to think about it, you know. So with all my exploration, I've been able to decode it in such a way that I can talk to you directly. Your being gets the, you know, gets it. You don't even have to think about it. Of course, there are people who are afraid, who will block me. That's because of fear. But if you're open, it is, you know, because what you know and what I know is not, you know, this is not something rocket science here. The common sense, actually, somehow we have not looked at that. That's all.
Very true, Mr. Jinan. Mr. Jinan, I
So,
know we are kind of tight on time, but if you're okay, we have one last question before we
Sure.
close. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
that's from Parul.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I have a subsequent question on this. Can I
Yeah.
ask you?
Hello. Hi. Should I continue?
Yeah. Parul.
Yeah. So actually, initially, last time when I just interrupted, that time I was about to ask about the children and language learning thing. But then, when you started talking about Ayurveda, it's interesting because recently, like one thing which has really been life changing for my children, me is the science of homeopathy from some doctor from the West itself. Imagine like living in India with homeopaths almost in every other 3 streets, you may find it. But then the way he uses homeopathy, which is an art, and what Jinanji you said, because I myself now to resolve and understand the depth of it, I'm reading homeopathy books. So written very old, it was not even available. Somehow I bought it from some, second hand. It was written that how the sun, moon, stars, and everything is affecting all the things in our body, and how the science, my goodness, it's like a meditation, and it's just crazy, like something so related to the topics and everything you're talking. And so I very agree. And even Ayurveda and homeopathy also, when I took it from another doctor, very well known, I went back to him, but my judgment said, no, he is traditional, what he knows. So he told me about that old homeopathy thing, which I took it from a main hospital doctor. He told me, this is like that allopathy homeopathy. So there's no point. And it was just so hitting, like what you said, if your being knows what is true, so always you choose that maybe the less walked path. So when I listen to you also, it's like meditation, because my children also, like, I won't use the word homeschool, very wrong, but they don't go to school is what I have at least transformed in saying. So the only thing one thing which I wanted to ask was about this language thing. I know language comes very naturally, but like Sanskrit, like I wanted them to learn this ancient thing, Sanskrit. So, but the thing is, like, it's not working out. Like, I don't know, like they try, like there's this girl, she herself is learning, 21 years. So my kids go to her house, she's like welcoming. So, but again, the teaching thing happens. So I was really wondering, is that the way? But there's nobody else to speak Sanskrit for them to just adapt from hearing, like how the Bangalore slum kids you talked about. But so, and one more observation which I noticed with English was, like, in normal, when they speak, I think they would have adapted English much better. But the moment they got into this thing of learning past tense and learning grammar, that's where the damage came. So didn't, my child is saying, did, mama, she didn't did. I'm like, Anna, it's not didn't did. It's didn't do. So then, because I remember you had mentioned once, grammar and all is like that nonsense, which I could just somehow get that logic, what you were trying to kind of say. Then I realized and actually observed that how when a child is learning grammar, it's affecting the mind, because everything she's trying to say in past tense just on purposely, because it's already past, right? But we did, it doesn't happen. You said didn't do. So I can see, but it's so stuck up, like, so what can I do about Sanskrit? At least English she can hear and learn, but what about Sanskrit if she wants to learn?
Parul, no answer right now. Let's not get into this. Okay. That one question, let me hear, and then we'll stop. Aditya or somebody want, someone
Sir,
was...
I had the subsequent question on this one. So can I have any some comment from you on the ancient education system which we were following during the Rishi's time?
No. I never lived with rishis, so I don't know anything about ancient. And I think history should be completely forgotten. You have to learn how learning takes place from your child only. There is no need of reading history and ancient gurus and all that kind of nonsense. Don't get into history at all. Just be present, observe your child, observe life around, and understand how life is learning. I think that is all what we should do instead of, wasting time on history and guru and all that, kind of things. Because again, you're going to waste time on, reading and imagining. You make up a story which you comfortable to you. Stop that. Because all my understanding came just by observing children. That's all. So I think we should get into that. Yeah, Sneha, we will.
So thank you so much, Mr. Jinan. It was a pleasure to have you to really speak about this important understanding that we have gone far away from. So thank you so much for that. And anyone here who'd like to contact Mr. Jinan, his number and his Instagram account is being shared in the chat box. And people who are the part of the Mahanavratri festival, his details will be shared on the group, so you can reach out to him anytime. So you mentioned about you have a workshop that's coming up, right? So that's in November,
Yeah,
5 day
first to
work,
fifth. Yeah.
1st to 5th. So the workshop as well, you can reach out to him if you're interested to learn. This is more about unparenting or more.
No, see, I actually, my, name, all kinds of names, my content remains the same. I put different names.
Got it.
Content is same.
Got it.
It's about
Okay.
how we are damaged and how we can learn from children. Simple.
Wonderful. So it's an opportunity for us to learn.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. So anyone who's interested in really, really opening yourself up, because I really believe that as parents, it's important that we see both the sides. We understand. I know we've been conditioned in a way, but when we open ourselves to our natural way, there's something beautiful that can emerge. We can become more present to our children and allow them to blossom as naturally as possible than, putting them into something. Because I mean, I observe my child and I really learn from her and I get to know how much she's capable of, and than me trying to say you must do something. So here's an opportunity for us to really learn a holistic way, really see all the sides, and then from that true understanding, take care of your children, take care of yourself, and take life forward, which will be probably in harmony with the environment, with the world, with our values. And yes, so this is very exciting actually for us to, have this kind of knowledge given. So thank you so much, Mr. Jinan. It was lovely to have you, and we will be in touch. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us for this evening. We are Unulom Project, and we do a lot of workshops, and we bring out these gems of our ancient India and in different cultures, not just India, but across, from the West, through philosophies, through culture. We really bring this out so that we understand it in today's context and get the best value for ourselves in today's world. So that's what we do. And thank you so much. And you can follow us. Our page and details are given. I'm wishing you a beautiful night ahead. All the Mahanavratri participants, we'll see you tomorrow morning for Suprabhatam at 8 a.m. Thank you, everyone. This is Sneha signing off.